Thank you for tuning in to this new episode of the Mindful Steward podcast. I know it's been a little bit since I've put something out now. I've just been pretty busy with a couple other projects I'm working on that I'm getting pretty excited to actually talk about a little bit more on this show. Soon enough, I'll be able to give you guys a little bit more information, but it was really nice to finally get an episode recorded with my friend Dale Stephenson. Him and I have actually tried a couple of times. He lives in Vancouver and I live in Toronto right now. And we finally got it done. I was in Vancouver last week and had the chance to hang out with him a little bit. And the reason I wanted to have Dale on this podcast, I haven't known him for a super long time. I became good friends with his brother, Matt. What I can say is that him and his brother are just two dudes who have such a good energy about them. They're really passionate, really hardworking, and I've really valued them as friends ever since hanging out and spending more time with them. And after chatting with Dale, I've really learned that him and I have a lot of different shared interests, and he has a lot of things to say about a lot of the things that I talk a lot about. So I just thought it'd be a really good conversation to have and just record some thoughts and hear his stories. You know, a lot of people get into the deep depths and realms of mindfulness because they've had some kind of experience that has triggered that in them. And his story is a little bit unique. He had basically a near-death experience. I'm not sure if he would attribute that as the main reason that he dove into all this content. I think maybe for him it just amplified it a little bit more and gave him a reason to think more deeply about a lot of different topics. But he tells that story and we kind of just discuss a lot of different things, including the way he sees the world of work, the way he sees the world of mindfulness, and a general view of how to live well. I know everyone kind of defines that differently, but I think the way he sees it lines up with the way I see it a lot. So we do talk about that quite a bit. If you're into this podcast at all, please subscribe or give it a rating. And I do have a lot of resources that I am releasing through email. So if you do want to join the email list, you get a free guided meditation from Michelle Pound and some ebook content that I've written, and you'll also get updates on a lot of other free guided meditations that are coming down the pipeline soon. So without further ado, I'll just get this episode started. Cool. So we've tried this a few times now. We tried to record one over Zoom and it just wasn't what we wanted it to turn out like.
No, yeah.
Kind of missed the actual like in-person hanging out while you're recording something aspect of it.
Absolutely.
Which for me I've learned is like pretty critical, which is such a shame because people all live everywhere, you know. It'd be nice if you could have conversations remotely and have that same connection, but...
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, you know, a lot of podcast guys try and do that, and it works, you know, for the pros, but I feel like, you know, it's hard to bond when you're not, you know, face to face. So yeah, it's wicked we finally have an opportunity to link up on the West Coast and give this the attention it deserves. So,
yeah.
So,
all right, cool, man. Well, I'm just gonna hop right into this. Like, I'm not gonna dilly-dally around again. But I mean, you and I have just become pretty good friends over the last little while. I met your brother like a long time ago and started hanging out with him more and kind of got connected with you and realized I think we're all kind of on the same wavelength with the way we're looking at our lives these days. So, yeah, it's been great hanging out with you guys, but I think you and I share a lot of interests, and specifically around all the mindfulness stuff and kind of living in a certain way that just is right for you. And we've shared a lot of conversations about that, and really that's obviously what this podcast is all about, is to have those conversations and be a tool to kind of get inside the heads of people who have their own ways of looking at the world. So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, no, it's a pleasure.
I know you have a lot of different things to talk about, so we finally narrowed it down to a few key discussion points, and then we can just go from there.
Cool.
But yeah, I'll give you a little intro. So one thing that like I have to say about you and Matt that I really love is that you guys have this really nice balance of just really soaking up as much as you can out of life in terms of literally pure fun, but you also are really focused on creating these cool lifestyles where you have successful careers that you actually love. You have a lot of like excitement and passion around.
For sure.
I know, not to talk down on any of the kind of experiences that I've had or the people who I've met, but like being part of the snowboard world, that's one thing that where I was growing up, we're also both from the same hometown.
London, yeah.
But like the friend groups that I kind of was a part of that really lacked that, like the snowboard and skateboard scene in Ontario, those people are honestly living it up, and I have so much admiration for people who put their own interests and hobbies above the expectations of society. Like so much, I'm impressed with those people because I literally don't have the balls to completely do that. To just say I don't give a shit at all. I'm just going to skate every day.
Yeah.
So that's cool, but I really love the way you and Matt kind of look at the world, and I have a lot of more friends like that. It's you and me sitting here right now, so we're talking about it. But
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean the ride or die lifestyle is one channel to take it, but I don't know. I guess kind of from a young age. I mean, same with me. My background too. I had started snowboarding at a young age and skateboarding, and I was always playing a lot of music, involved in hanging out late at bars and a lot of jamming, a lot of kind of alternative lifestyles were going on. But I don't know. From a young age, I always try to just keep my finger on the pulse of what the bigger vision is, where the road's going to be in 2 to 3 to 5 years, and just always kind of just keeping your finger on the pulse while you're still indulging in these kind of, you could look at it as a reckless lifestyle or a dangerous lifestyle a lot of the times, but making sure the track is cohesive, Yeah, for sure.
Dude, I love that because there's a lot of those kind of scenes right now, like people who are just living in Yosemite in a camper van.
Yeah.
And they look so down on people who are career focused. And it's like, man, there's something to be said about like giving a shit about bringing value to the world and bringing like a bigger form of value, There's something so cool about that.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
And yeah, I mean, we'll talk more about that later. I know you have an interesting thing you brought up like probably 2 years ago when we were hanging out. And I have contemplated that a few different times, and I've brought it up in different contexts.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that after. But so as a whole, I mean, when it comes to mindfulness and meditation, I'm not going to like blanket term it like that, but just like, I don't know, being very introspective and conscious about the way that you're living. A lot of people who get in that frame of mind and live like that, they got there because something went on in their life. A lot of time it's kind of traumatic, like they had some, I don't know, bad parent divorce, or they, I don't know, this could be anything, people who have their everything that they work for
drug
stripped away from
addiction,
them.
alcoholism,
depression.
Like an epiphany, absolutely, depression,
and that's, most people have those stories. Almost everyone who I meet, I meet a lot of people. I go to like a lot of events and just do those activities a lot in Toronto, and they all have those reasons. I don't really have that reason. I feel like I just had a really cool life in a snowboard world when that was my life.
Right.
And I just felt kind of what excellence feels like, and I just wanted to get back to that.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, oh man, how do you do it? So I've been really introspective because I just want to like be as pumped about life as I used to be.
For sure.
And I think I am, but just in a different way. But your story is pretty unique, and I know you draw a lot of connections as to the way you live now and the way that you see things happening in your kind of conscious awareness from that experience, and how that could have turned out in an alternative way for the worse. So I'll let you kind of tell us the story, and then we can kind of chat about a few other things after that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my experience that kind of sparked and shaped my life in the last 9 years was something that was extremely traumatic, and I didn't actually realize until later on the implication it actually created in my worldview, my ethos, my work ethic, how I treat and value other human beings in my life. So I mean, to cut to the meat and potatoes, it was I just got back from Australia. I was traveling down there for a few months, and get back and give my best buddy Jay a shout to go up to Old Blue Mountain for a little shred.
A couple laps.
A couple laps after spending too much time on the beach. So yeah, so we were up there. We were riding for the day, and at night we were heading back. And it was pretty late. We were pretty tired. Super snowy. You know when you're just kind of driving and you've had a long day snowboarding or hiking or running, and you're just kind of zoned out. You've got chill beats playing, and you're just kind of really, really kicking back. So, I mean, I actually was sitting at one point with my feet up on the dashboard, and I had no seatbelt on. And, we're flying out down the county line roads, actually going to Guelph, Ontario. So, I was kind of zoned out. I literally remember I was on the iPod back in the iPod days, and I was actually putting on a Hot Chip song, which was the band like we were super stoked about back then. And anyway, so I went to go change the song, and I put the iPod back in the console, and I looked up, and I kind of looked outside, and I realized we're going really fast, and it's just gnarly outside, snowy, cold, dark. And something came over me in that moment to sit up straight, put my seat up, put my feet on the ground, and put my seatbelt on. And it was a pretty strong intuition. It came out of nowhere. I had no other predisposition to think that way in that moment. And it just kind of came over me. So I did. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna not sit so recklessly for whatever reason. Everything else was totally safe. There's no other cars on the road. It wasn't too crazy outside, but it was just, it'd been a long day. So I was like, well, I don't know. Let's just be safe. So anyways, I sit up, I put my seatbelt on, and I go to text my girlfriend at the time. And as I look down at my phone, next thing I know, bam, just huge crash. Phone flies out of my hand, smashes the top of the truck. And from then on, it was absolute chaos for about what seemed eternity. Literally, it was insane. It's kind of hard to describe now, but it's a feeling. Literally, time actually does feel like it slows down. Like a millisecond is you're there observing in that millisecond. It's really strange. So this took place. The iPod flies out of my hand. I literally feel my body raising off the seat, and as I look forward, the windshield is crashing down into my lap, and the airbag's going off and just pushing all the glass essentially past my face. And I tried to turn to put my shoulder in front of it, but I can feel the seatbelt pushing hard on my chest and hard on my lap, and really kind of holding me in place in this moment of absolute, chaos and just upheaval. And at the time, I had no clue what the hell was going on at all. I mean, you don't even process what an accident is. You always just kind of assume it's never going to happen to you. You're paying attention on the road. You trust the people you're with, and everything's just fine and dandy. So I kind of just closed my eyes, and we eventually the carnage comes to a stop. I actually had no idea what to expect. So my eyes are closed. I come to a rest, and I'm there. I'm sitting there. I'm touching my legs. I'm like, okay, I'm here.
I'm alive.
I'm alive. Yeah. I'm like, okay, whatever just happened to us, I somehow survived it. But I had this another weird gut feeling, actually, which I didn't even tell you about this part, but I was actually not looking to my left. I was only looking down at my feet at the time, because I was actually terrified to look to my left to see if my best buddy Jay was in his driving, in the driver's seat.
Or even if he was alive.
Even if he was alive, just in general, I had no idea what was going on, and actually I had a feeling that he wasn't there, and I looked to my left and he wasn't there. So if you picture, I'm sitting out in a totally smashed up truck in the middle of a cornfield in January, and I look to my left, and Jay's not there. He's not in the seat, and to make matters worse, the window and the door that on his side was completely smashed in a jar and just wrecked, totally wrecked. It had actually pushed in to about a foot away from where I was sitting.
Holy shit.
So it was just completely dented in. So I'm sitting there like, oh my God, like what the fuck do I do? I'm sitting here. It's freezing, by the way. I'm in a t-shirt.
Yeah.
There's also like...
It's Ontario winter.
Yeah. And like all the shit that was in the truck is all over, like on my lap. Like I've got snowboard boots like up in the front. There's like everything. It's just absolute madness. So I'm terrified. I'm like, Jay is dead. He's probably out of, who knows? Like, or where even are we? Like, how do you can't even... I'm looking out the window and it's like... pitch black, and it's like, and all you can smell is like just smoke, and like you can smell. I don't know if anyone's ever, anyone who has ever like been in a welding shop, the smell of like burning metal, that like wretched kind of like sour smell.
Yeah,
that smell was in the air, and it's a dark, powerful, sensation of emotion that overcomes you when you're in an extremely massive car accident, because you have burning metal, you have burning rubber, you have all sorts of different burning materials.
Mm-hmm.
You've
got a crazy adrenaline rush going on.
Crazy.
Were you injured? Were you like?
Later on I was at the moment in that exact moment, you have so much adrenaline pumping through you that I didn't feel any pain at all. I felt fine. I was very shooken up. I had no frame of reference to comprehend what had taken place, essentially. So if you could imagine being thrown into a scenario and you can't compute. I didn't even think that we were in an accident, to be honest. I actually, in that moment, I actually thought that, this sounds crazy, but I thought we had a roadside bomb, because that's what it felt like, and that's what it sounded like. It was a bang. It sounded like an explosion.
Yeah, and you were looking down too, so you didn't see.
I was looking down and I didn't see anything. Yeah. So as far as I was concerned, we were in a roadside bomb in like rural Ontario. That's what had happened.
Yeah.
And I wasn't actually sure if I had weird thoughts going through my head in a split moment of sitting in the truck. I was like, well, am I dead? And I'm just like floating around this like crash site for a bit, like. I don't know, because it's dead quiet, right? There's no sound. No sound from Jay, no sound from a vehicle that potentially could have hit us if that was the case. So it's like really weird, really eerie. So
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I've never been in any accident, never really, I guess like I've, live in Ontario. Like I've seen the 401, I've seen accidents on the side, but man, they're terrifying. Like,
I mean, terrifying is like it's like a word that isn't even sufficient in describing the feeling. It's a dreadful feeling,
Yeah.
And so, anyways, to cap the story off, I mean, so I'm sitting in the truck, and it's like, well, hey, man, I gotta get out of this vehicle and go see what's going on, and go see if I can find Jay. And I'm just terrified in my gut to just find him, the worst case scenario. And sure enough, I get out of the truck and I'm looking in the distance, probably about 150 feet close out to the road. And at that point, I had realized that we were actually about 200 feet in the middle of a cornfield. So we had flown off an intersection, and we had spun a jar out to the right of the intersection. And there Jay is on his hands and knees, about 100 feet away, with his hands on his head like this, just kind of staring at the sky. And
yeah.
So I run up to him, and I go up to him, and he's pretty badly injured. He's got a big kind of cut on his head, and he's bleeding, and he has no clue what's going on. He's like, what? Like, he's like, where were we going? Like, what happened? He was asking me who was driving.
Wait, is this Jay who I met in Toronto the other week?
Yes, that's Jay. The guy on the patio. Yeah, okay. That's Jay Davis.
That's so funny. Anyways,
That's 100%. So I go up to him. I'm like, man, and at that point I knew that we were driving. I knew really what was going on, but I didn't know how it happened. So I pick Jay up and I help him up to the road. He's very disoriented, and then I realize there's another car. And then that's when I clued in, oh my God, we were in a car accident. And I approached them, and as I came up to their vehicle, flames shot out from the inside of their car and were just billowing out. And there's people screaming, but I couldn't figure out where they were. So I'm just like having a full-on freak out panic attack, being like, oh my God, like are you kidding me? There's people in a car and the car's burning. It's like, and there's no one else around. There's no other vehicles. We're in the middle of nowhere. And I've got Jay who has no clue what's going on. I've got people screaming that I got this car burning. And I'm like, dude, I'm about to like enter hell or something. Like,
yeah.
I didn't know what was going on. And so we just keep pushing through it. We're waiting for someone to show up. I needed someone to come and get us out of this mess. We're freezing, and we're just in a total state of absolute pandemonium. And these people who were in the other car, they were also extremely shooken up. They had no clue what was going on. So sure enough, a vehicle showed up and called the ambulance and fire engine, and the police showed up. The coroner came. I actually talked to the coroner that was called to pronounce us dead. And so that took place. And one other important part of the story is, and this is back to our earlier conversation of the really kind of important part of the story was I had a police officer and a doctor come into my room that night at the hospital and essentially tell us, man, like, we've never seen anyone survive an accident of this magnitude. And they're like, we see people in these types of accidents all the time out in the county line roads and in the country. People accidentally go through an intersection at a very high rate of speed, and the T-bone accidents happen all the time. Usually everyone's pronounced dead on the scene. And that broke me down, and that rang in my ears for the last 9 years, essentially.
Yeah. So that's how long ago this took place.
Yeah, it was in January. It was actually so January 2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like almost 9 years.
Almost 9 years. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Crazy, man. Yeah, and I mean, that is, oh man, I would never want that to happen to me, but it's awakening,
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure that just wakes you up, like, to just how fragile everything really is, or can be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what do you think was one of your biggest takeaways from that whole, like, how did that really just change the way that you were living from that point?
Yeah, for sure. And that's a good question. I think after that point, I went back home with my parents, and I actually had time to put my life into perspective and to really, really analyze, how I was acting in my life and the types of people I was, interacting with, and how everything, I mean, from relationships to career aspirations to, passion and, back to your question about the injury. I mean, I essentially was on a couch for 3 weeks straight. Couldn't walk as I couldn't move forward. I couldn't bend forward because my entire chest was bruised from the seatbelt. So it sparked me down this road of, quite profound introspection and analytical thought on, I mean, many things, the purpose of why I'm here and really why I survived the accident. And because I did have a deep underlying feeling that I was supposed to die that night, and I somehow escaped my own death.
Yeah.
So it felt like I was living in like this dream world where I wasn't supposed to be.
Yeah.
It was a really, really strange feeling. It was actually very terrifying. I didn't tell anyone about it at the time. I kept it bottled up, essentially. It gave me a lot of anxiety, actually, for a very long time. But
I can imagine. I
ended up being able to work through it, and my outlook on it was, at the end, was not that I escaped my own death and I was supposed to die, but perhaps I was, I had survived for a reason, and there was some sort of underlying integrity and purpose behind me surviving that accident, because the chances of survival were so insanely minimal. And to make things more profound, I put my seatbelt on about 30 seconds before it happened.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk to you all day about
that.
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah. So it's really crazy. So really what came of it was the concept of intuition and the concept of like your inner compass and your inner guides. Mm-hmm. And, if I were to draw one thesis away from the introspection that came out of that moment, it would be the concept of intuition and the concept of, in a way where we are all here for a reason. And I went through a really, really traumatic, crazy experience that pushed me down the road, forced me to go down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And and you end up going down roads that are hard and very dark and confusing, because getting to the truth of how you feel is hard, and a lot of people avoid that, right? That's why it's not you got to put the work in, right? And I was forced to put the work in, but so I mean, the concept of intuition is what I was absolutely obsessed with and just fascinated by. Because why was it that I felt the need to put the seatbelt on in those last moments? And to make it even more crazy, the doctor in the corner said, you would have died if you didn't have your seatbelt on. And I said, man, I put my seatbelt on like 10 seconds before the accident. Like, and they just couldn't believe it. They were all struck. They're like, that's crazy. They're like, man, you guys have someone looking out for you guys out there. And so
crazy, man.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Just to ask, this is like a question I'll just ask.
Yeah.
I love asking people this. A lot of people on the show, on my podcast, have been asked. But so there's two different ways of looking at this. Everyone has a weird way of answering this question, but
okay.
Like, when it comes to more on a spiritual plane,
mm-hmm.
Are you more of a creationist, or do you believe things happen for a reason? Because, I mean, that's a hard question to answer. But, like, now that you've been through this, do you believe that there's a plan? Like, things are laid out?
So, yeah. So that's a really good question. So, I think that there is a plan. Okay. I think that things are laid out. Things are put into your path for a reason. Now, it's what you take. It's what you make from it. It's not experiences in life. It's what we make from the experience. It's what we take from it. So, the way that I conceptualized, the path and the intuitive path is that throughout your life, you're given a series of opportunities or a series of events that you're going to go through. And it's up to how you process it and how you take the information that's coming at you intuitively to make the decisions to move forward. And you can decide to make good decisions, or you can decide to make bad decisions from it.
Mm-hmm.
But the underlying force that's propelling you forward and that's essentially helping to guide you, those are there for a reason. Those are there for you. Those are there to keep you on your path. And I always kind of relate it to, we're all on our own, like a train track, essentially. And if you're not paying attention, that train's going to fall off the track and start going through the woods. And eventually, if you're not cluing into the signs that are coming your way intuitively to smarten up and get back on track, or, stop hanging out with those people, stop doing this, think about your passion, your truth more, and pay more attention to what you feel inside you is right, which everyone has.
Yes.
Then until you do that, that train's going to keep plowing through those woods until it hits a brick wall and crashes.
Yeah.
That's the kind of metaphor that I've kind of created essentially from that.
Cool. I like that.
Yeah, so to answer your question, I think there is, and I think there's meaning behind what we endure in life, and we can look for the signs, and we can act on those signs, and we can mm-hmm. and again, back to intuition, your intuition is a process that is there to help guide you.
Yeah. And look for meaning in those challenges too, right?
Absolutely.
Like, don't just get frustrated and give up on something. Kind of like understand, like, what am I supposed to gain from this, or what could I be doing differently?
100%.
Because this is where it's funny because I fully believe in the law of attraction, but I feel like I believe in a more old-fashioned teaching of it. Like, I'm not going to go into that, but there's like old texts, old Hindu texts and stuff that talk about this kind of thing. There's a lot of old stuff, but they talk about it in a way different way than like the modern popular teachings, like The Secret, that movie. Where think about this.
Yeah.
One of the things that I have really heard over and over again is like the law of attraction doesn't just bring you what you want. It brings you lessons and experiences that you need to overcome to be able to be the kind of person to get what you want. Right. Which is kind of makes sense in all reality. Like, if you want to be if you want to own a company and get rich, like let's just use that as an example. You know,
Right.
a lot of people would like financial freedom and like the idea of being their own boss and kind of having that like an empire that makes them feel accomplished.
Right.
Like the world's going to bring you struggles that make you a better entrepreneur that just kind of weeds out the people who actually want that bad enough and those who don't. Like,
yep, exactly. Yeah, it's like a game of balance almost, right? Like,
yeah,
for sure. I mean, and, you know, and there's a few kind of like words that I live by too. Is like a few quotes. I mean, one is we don't get what we want in life. We get what we believe we deserve. And it's a cool one. I mean,
it's a good guiding principle.
It's a classic principle because it's funny because we always end up finding evidence for what we choose to believe. So if you believe a certain set of principles or a certain direction in your life, that be it negative or positive, you're going to search subconsciously for evidence to support that. So you end up actually pushing yourself further down that road. When if you can change your mindset and your belief set, you're changing your personal energy field, you're changing your outlook, how you even your presence in a room. People are going to feel it. They're going to see it in your eyes because you're representing it from a soul level, from a truth level, from a directional level. It's coming. It's you know, it's radiating from you. So so it's important to, you know, not reiterate and not push forward beliefs that are counterproductive to your intention and, you know, and counterproductive to what you feel you're here to do, and to actually work towards creating the vision internally before it's projected externally. You know, have it internally.
Yeah, and you
have that mental, that inner dialogue. You know.
Yeah. Sorry, I almost interrupted. But
no,
and you have to have the beliefs. The beliefs come first. You know, it's like your thoughts create beliefs. Your beliefs create actions and opportunities. That's where like really all of this mindfulness stuff that I'm doing right now. I told you about the business that I'm working on, which is basically a mindset training business. I'm not going to go into those details yet until that stuff is more ready to talk about. But yeah, my partner and I have been working on that, and it's literally like I'm just so blown away by the power of mindset training. I think that's like one of the new waves. It's like going to be kind of the new. It's like how to be successful is like how to train your mind. And success is more like, I mean that in a lot of broad ways. I mean like happy, satisfied, you know, just having connections in your life that bring you a lot of value. I don't mean success as in like rich.
No, definitely. Yeah, for sure. And I mean like, it's interesting because, I mean, you back to your like the secret thing like that. I mean, their logic is the way that they presented that is it's kind of, you know, the hocus pocusy kind of like whatever, but like sure, but the reality behind it is the truth, and the reality behind it is if you're manifesting your dream internally and you believe it to be true, you're setting precedent in your own life to achieve that.
Yeah.
Almost so much so that it's impossible it will not happen.
Yeah.
Because you've made the reality already as a part of your life. It's in you. It's a part of your fiber.
For sure.
And you'll begin to represent that vision in your day-to-day life subconsciously.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's it. It just becomes a part of you. It is you.
Yeah.
So the dream isn't, you know, it isn't not a part of you. It is a part of you. It's a part of your existence. So, yeah.
No,
little
it's so
tangent,
real,
but,
man. But like,
yeah.
Exactly, it kind of trains your subconscious mind to already be comfortable with the possibilities that you're creating in your head.
For
so
sure.
when they show up, you're not caught off guard. You're literally ready for it. You're like, all right, now what comes next?
Yeah, absolutely.
And everyone's experienced that. Like people who have done anything with anything they're passionate about, that's what you did. You did that. You know, you embodied what it takes to be that person.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally like boils down to the science of like magnetics. Like people, that's the simple way. It's just like attracts like. That's what it is.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Like-minded people attract like-minded people.
Yeah. Your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yeah. If you're just
100%.
being the kind of person who has those things, they just happen.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I mean, you really do. One thing like that is so real about you is your passions are like very high on your priorities.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people like that, but the ratio of everyday people in society who are living that way is like pretty low, unfortunately. Like there's an article I wrote that I feel like I have to mention right now. I'm not trying to promote my
self-promote.
Yeah, I'm not trying to promote my own shit, but
sweet.
It was like one of the first articles when I first started publishing stuff. I forget where I published it, but it was basically around finding yourself. I had some title that was kind of like a pun about like finding yourself, but you meet so many people in this life who are kind of uncertain, and they're like, I don't know what I like I don't even know myself.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to find those things.
Absolutely, for sure.
But it's like, you already know the things that you like doing. You know? What do you like doing?
Yeah.
Like, that is what your intuition is. Mm-hmm. It's not as complicated as you think,
No, it really
It's
isn't.
not some external thing that's going to pop in your life and tell you. It's like, what is your gut telling you? It's like, oh man, I want to be in Whistler snowboarding every day.
Yeah.
That would make me super happy, and that's literally what I dream about. That's your gut. That is your intuition right there. That you don't have to find yourself, because that is who you are.
So you act on it, and that's the most important part. And yeah, great point, because a lot of people think, and one mindset to get caught up in is, you set a goal that's not achievable. So, lower the standards a bit, set something that's achievable, and then use that as an avenue, use that as a breaking point to get into the stream to where you want to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like if you're getting bogged down and things aren't going in the exact direction you want to go, you just need to get your foot in the door, do something, get out, like you said, find that sliver of passion, and just try to do it 15-20% of your day at least, and look for a way in. And same with me. I had no idea what the hell I wanted to do. I knew, like, in high school, I was athletic. I was really good in the arts and art and design, and so I was kind of torn between, oh my God, do I be a painter or do I become an architect? So I was kind of like, I don't know what to do. And I ended up going to university for urban design, and I enjoyed my time, but I knew it wasn't really what I wanted to do. And so that's when I went back to school for architectural design after that. And that, by the way, was after the accident. That was a part of that was a part of the
awakening.
It was a part of it was a part of the, all right, what do I have to do to create a life that is exactly how I imagined it in every way? So I imagined, what do I want the office to look like when I walk in? And it's funny because one of the prerequisites was like, I want to be able to work at a place that I can wear sandals to work. That was actually in my mind. I was like, I want to work at a cool design firm, that's laid back but progressive, dynamic and forward thinking. And I thought that in 2011, and then 4 years later, I ended up working at the firm that I'm at now, design agency.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved to Toronto with all my best friends. Went back to school for architectural design, and just tried to manifest this vision that I created that day on the couch after the accident.
Yeah.
And it took place. It currently is taking place. So it's crazy. But it's funny because it only took place because I was conscious of it the entire time. I looked for what I wanted to do, and I made sure I was talking to the right people that would put me in touch with the right people. So the goal isn't short term, is very long term. Like, I'm looking very far in the future at all times if I can.
And that's why the power of intention is like so huge.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of my friends, Ross, who I had have an episode with, he told me about this study, and I went and checked it because I didn't even know if it was going to be real or not. No offense, Ross. But I had to see it for my own eyes. But there's this study, and it was done at like Harvard or something like that. It might have been Stanford. But people who write out their goals and look at them every day are like something like 15 times more likely to accomplish them.
For sure.
Because it just keeps it top of mind, You meet some random guy who's like, yeah, my cousin works in design. Yeah. If you weren't totally aware of what your end goal was, you might be like, oh, that's super cool, man. I'll do that one day. Yeah. Yeah. But if you know it, you're going to be like, oh, man, who's your cousin? Can I chat with him?
Can I chat with him? Yeah.
I would love to learn from him.
Yeah.
It's just like the awareness.
100%, and that's a really good point too. Is like everyone, it's really, really, really key. I think, in my experience, is that to always remember that every single person you meet in your life has an important role in your trajectory. Everyone. So every connection, whether it be at work, whether it be literally walking down the street, to who you talk to at a party, to how you interact with the bank teller, everyone's got a little piece of energy and a little piece of machinery that can work towards providing your engine with more stability and more strength and more direction. So that was one of the most important parts that I've just kind of realized in terms of the career path and stuff. You know, I made sure I was very tight with the community at my school, and I ended up getting, you know, a requisition through that to work for an architect out of the gates, and then my second job was another requisition from a contact that I had through the industry. So the power of connections with other humans is what, you know, propels us forward ultimately. You know, it's funny because, you know, you can get pretty bogged down in performance-based tasks and skill-based tasks, but really, you know, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So it's a group effort, you know.
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely, man. I like that mentality. Cool. So, I mean, I gotta tell this intuition story.
Yeah.
My intuition story.
Oh no, I would love to. I was gonna ask you. Let's
I'll
let's
do that, and then
yours.
I'll bring up the retirement talk.
Cool.
Which is the thing I introed with that I said I would bring up.
Nice, perfect. Yeah.
But yeah, like, I mean, I've become a huge listener, and I have a friend recently who I've been chatting with a bunch, who I met through my podcast, and she, like, it's so interesting hanging out with her because she just kind of like dissects me, which is so good, to be honest. Somebody who just tells you those blind spots.
100%. Like, criticism is so paramount.
Yeah,
absolutely love it.
But yeah, she's always told me, she's like, you know, you're really analytical, like, which is good, but like, it'd be so much that analytical kind of power would be so good if you like had more of a feeling side, and you like were always feeling about what's going on in your head and your gut, and like understand that part better. So I've been trying to do a lot more of that lately,
right?
And this is a story that I've thought about quite a lot in general over the last couple of years, but here I am in Vancouver again, and it's like so relevant right now, so it's so funny. But I basically like was planning on moving out here. Like, I spent I don't know, maybe close to half a year here a few years ago. Yeah. Bounced around a bunch, lived in Whistler for a bit, on the island for a bit, and it was awesome. And I had spent time in Whistler before that, a few summers before, and I just haven't always known. Like, I was like, I want to live there so bad. It's the best. Yeah. Like, literally, 100%. Just feels like my gut feeling of where I need to be. Yeah. And then I was packing all my stuff, and I literally, like, randomly started hanging out with this girl. And I was like, and I kept getting these random freelance jobs. Right. And I started hesitating. And I literally had all my things ready to move to Vancouver. Right. My roommates, I told them I was leaving. They owned the house, so it was pretty easy. But either way, I was fully ready to go. Ended up sticking around because I was kind of seeing this girl. That thing didn't really last that long, maybe half a year or whatever it was. But there were a lot more factors too. Like, literally, I was just uncertain. I had this really gut feeling that was pure uncertainty about moving here. For sure, yeah. And I bailed out. And I got a bunch of random freelance jobs, and I was really kind of just at an uncertain stage in my life, I guess. Right. I was kind of switching career paths from my business degree, which I had worked at a bank before, to working in marketing, which, you know, I had to kind of start back from square one. Young lad anyway, so it didn't matter. But, and then I basically bailed, decided to focus on the career. Now I'm like 2 years into my career. I've been living in Toronto. Done a lot in 2 years, to be honest, because I've always had this vision that, like, I need to juice the shit out of all this exposure to all these business connections in Ontario. 100%. Yeah. Because I know I don't want to live in Toronto forever. And now I'm here in Vancouver, just walking around here, and I literally am like, like, man, I still feel like I'm supposed to be here, but I just have this more comfortable feeling.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm moving here now, but it's just like, it's like pure intuition.
For sure.
Last time I was kind of like halfway in, and it's just an interesting feeling, really.
Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I can tell you're meant to be here. Obviously, it's you're cut out for it. I mean, and the thing too about the West Coast is like when you can really feel it. And I remember for years, and I was coming out here for site visits for restaurants I was working on, and I'd come out on a Friday and stay the weekend, meet up with Jay and Randall, and go ski touring, backcountry snowboarding, and fly back to Toronto and just be melting, being like, oh, I don't know if I'm cut out for this city anymore. And and I was very conflicted because I was in a band with Jesse and Mike, my two best buddies there, and in a career that I loved, and then simultaneously I was like, I belong on the West Coast. So. And back to your point, I mean, like, you're doing really well in Toronto. You're pushing it. You made the move. You're making the connections that are integral to your long-term growth. And I think it's really key, and it's really important that you're aware of that. It's really important because you're not just running on the wheel. You're not just spinning the cogs. You have a vision. The long-term vision, but you're also present in the moment, in the time that you are in Toronto as well, because the value that you're going to take and others around you that you're interacting with are going to take from your time in Toronto is key, and is valuable and important, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's cool because like it's almost like your time will come, just trust, and then that's what I always felt. I knew like 4 years ago, I was like, I know I'm going to end up in BC. I know I'm going to end up in Vancouver. But it's not right now. It's not right. It wasn't the right time. I was in a relationship that wouldn't have allowed me to come out here, and I had obligations, and I just started a career that I was very passionate about, and it proved to solidify me in the direction that I'm going now. So, and I knew that deep down. But I also knew deep down I'm going to be leaving one day. Just now is not the time. And it's cool to know now is not the time and be okay with it because you know the direction. And eventually it'll become so overwhelming that you'll just have to shoot the gun out and just pull the trigger. And then you're good.
Yeah.
And then you'll be rewarded. The universe has a way of rewarding you when you get onto that track. But it's all in.
I know, all in due time.
Yeah, that's great.
We'll see what happens, but it's been really refreshing being out here again.
Yeah, man, for sure. Well, I can't wait to get you out here, that's for sure. It's going to be good.
Okay, so, I mean, we only have like 5 minutes or so left, but I want to bring this up because this is something you and I and a bunch of us were hanging out at Matt's place like a few years ago, just chatting about it.
Yeah, back when I was living on the couch.
Yeah.
Before I moved out here.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Right. Just couch surfing. And, before I moved out here and Matt went to Australia. That was crazy.
Before everyone departed in some ways.
Those are great times.
And then, I basically have kind of reiterated this point to many people because it's a very interesting way of looking at things. But we somehow got into the topic of retirement because a lot of our parents are getting to close to that age. I think you said your dad retired. Well, yeah.
Yeah, both my parents have, yeah.
Yeah, so I think we were talking about that sort of thing. And you brought up this interesting point, and you were saying, I don't know if it's not really something that you believe in or not like it's a religion, but you were saying, I don't really know if I necessarily believe in retirement. Like, retirement kind of preemptively states that your job sucks and you're dying to get out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it made sense, like, honestly, in the manufacturing era, which isn't totally gone, but when everyone had manufacturing jobs, that's what it was like. People would go to work, put in their time, couldn't wait to retire.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are still doing that, but for our generation mostly, that isn't really a possibility quite as much anymore. We're in a service and technological economy. So work is a lot different. And there is a possibility of finding work that you like so much that retirement is irrelevant. And you were saying that is kind of the end goal,
Yeah.
To find work that you're not dying to escape when you turn 55 to 65.
Totally. And the reason why it popped up on my mind was, talking with a lot of friends from back home who, we were talking about the concept of retirement. We were talking about the concept of having a set parameter around your time in a certain career path. And I always was so kind of brought back in the sense of, like why is it your goal to leave something you've put so much work into? The idea behind it should be, let's try to create a set of lifestyle choices and career path choices that is integrated in your life path, is integrated in what you stand up for, what you represent in the world. The integration between passion, career, and income and the beat you walk should be one rhythm. At least for me. I mean, then again, I'm not speaking for everyone. I'm speaking the way that I would see it, because someone asked me, "Oh, when do you want to retire?" And I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to retire, to be honest. I don't want to be in the position that I have to retire from something that I'm doing. My intention is to, over time, integrate my source of revenue so much. I mean, it already is essentially now as it is, but I'm lucky to have that. But the intention is to have the unification of income, career, and passion and hobby as the as unified with your life, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's such a cool way of looking at it.
Yeah. For sure,
seriously,
it is.
Man.
And it's weird because
it's just a thought that a lot of people don't consider.
Yeah, and for me, it's like a no-brainer. I was like, oh, of course, retirement. It kind of freaks me out thinking about retirement. I don't want to retire. What are you gonna do? It's like, I don't know. Might as well put forth everything you're doing with your time towards something that's productive and creative and enjoyable as much as it can be. Now, it's not to say you're going to get that right off the bat, but over time, again, long-term goal is that's what we should all be working towards, I think, and to better the lives, of those around us and yourself.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
And I mean, to be honest, for myself personally, this is I have a lot of things I'm really grateful for, but I think I have ended up in a really rare scenario where I'm surrounded with friends who live that.
Yeah.
Live that out. A lot of my friends are pro snowboarders because I was in that world at one point.
Absolutely. Videographers.
A
lot of
Chris Evans and Whiten, those guys, they're all killing it, just doing their favorite thing.
Absolutely.
And Matt, and I feel so grateful to be surrounded by that, because it really, it's a huge influence. The people who you hang out with and you're surrounded by it
100%
shape your views in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and my brother Matt and I, we have these powwows all the time where we're sharing energy and sharing dialogue around career and passion. And Matt's been killing it for the last year, and his ultimate passion is to be a photographer, but he's actually infused it with his architecture firm that he's working for. And now he pitched to Gensler Sydney. He said, I want to be the videographer and filmographer for Asia, and he had his pitch was compelling enough that they gave him a loan to get the gear, and now that it's slowly manifesting itself. It's still the two wings, architecture and photography, but eventually it's going to peel off, and that'll be and there you go.
For sure,
and it takes time. The thing is it takes time. That's it. That's what's up.
And that's a millennial dilemma
patience
right there.
Yeah, patience is key.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like having the world kind of talk about millennials and stereotypes, but that's a millennial stereotype. And I struggle with it, man.
Right.
I want to be 100 steps ahead from where I am now, and that's why I do shit like this and have this podcast and do side hustle things, but sometimes I really need to chill myself out and remember what's going on here. Yeah.
Think big, pull back, think big picture, be nice to people.
That's an awesome note to end.
That's it.
Cool. Awesome. Well, we're done.
Man.
Thanks, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was great.